Most people spend 0 minutes per day in true silence. Not a single minute. And researchers have now linked this chronic noise exposure to shorter lifespans, higher rates of anxiety, and immeasurable shrinkage of the brain regions responsible for memory and emotional regulation. 0 minutes of silence. That is where most of us are living. In the next 10 minutes, you are going to discover exactly what silence does to your brain and body at a biological level, why the world's highest performers and most respected thinkers have protected silence like a sacred resource, and the one finding from neuroscience that completely flips what most people believe about doing nothing. Because it turns out, silence is not empty. It is one of the most productive states a human brain can enter. For most of human history, silence was simply a feature of daily life. Before industrialization, before electricity, before the constant hum of appliances and traffic and notifications, human beings experienced long stretches of quiet as a matter of course. Hunters waited in silence. Farmers worked in relative stillness. Monks built entire spiritual traditions around the deliberate practice of not speaking. Ancient philosophers, from the Stoics of Greece to the sages of early China, treated silence not as an absence of something but as a presence in itself. Pythagoras famously required his students to observe 5 years of silence before being allowed to ask questions. He believed that learning to listen, truly listen, was the foundation of all wisdom. These were not people romanticizing silence. They were people who understood intuitively what science has only recently begun to confirm. The modern world has fundamentally changed our relationship with sound. The World Health Organization classifies noise pollution as a major environmental health threat. Chronic exposure to noise above 55 decibels, roughly the level of a normal conversation, is enough to trigger measurable stress responses in the body. Urban environments regularly expose people to 70, 80, even 90 decibels throughout the day. And here is what makes this so significant. Your nervous system never fully habituates to noise. Even when you stop consciously noticing it, your brain keeps processing it, keeps responding to it, keeps releasing low-level stress hormones in reaction to it. The silence you are not getting is costing you more than you realize. In 2013, neuroscientist Im Kirst at Duke University was studying the effects of sound on the brains of mice. She used silence as a control condition, expecting it to show nothing interesting. What she found instead changed the conversation entirely. Mice that were exposed to 2 hours of silence per day developed new cells in the hippocampus, the region of the brain most closely associated with memory, learning, and spatial navigation. The silence group outperformed every other group, including mice exposed to calming music. Silence was not neutral. It was actively regenerative. It was building new brain tissue. This connects to something called the default mode network. When you are not actively processing external stimuli, your brain does not simply go offline. It shifts into a different kind of activity. The default mode network lights up during silence and rest. This is the network responsible for self-reflection, creative insight, emotional processing, and the consolidation of memories. When you are constantly consuming information, constantly stimulated, constantly reacting to input, you are suppressing this network. You are essentially denying your brain the time it needs to integrate everything it has experienced. Silence is when your brain does its deepest, most meaningful work. Think about where your best ideas come from. Most people will say the shower, a walk, just before falling asleep. These are all low stimulation, near silent environments. That is not a coincidence. That is your default mode network finally getting the space it needs to connect dots, surface insights, and generate the kind of thinking that focused effort alone never produces. But here is what nobody talks about. Silence is deeply uncomfortable for most people in the modern world, and that discomfort itself is a signal worth paying attention to. A famous 2014 study published in the journal Science gave participants a simple choice. They could sit quietly with their thoughts for 15 minutes, or they could administer a small electric shock to themselves. Most people chose the shock. Many multiple times. People would rather hurt themselves than sit alone in silence. That level of discomfort around stillness is not trivial. It points to something important about our relationship with our own minds. The reason silence feels so uncomfortable for many people is that it removes the constant buffer between us and our inner experience. Noise, screens, and stimulation function as a kind of psychological insulation. When everything goes quiet, the thoughts and feelings you have been avoiding tend to surface. And this is actually one of the deepest benefits of silence, though it rarely gets framed this way. Silence creates the conditions for genuine self-knowledge. It forces a kind of honest confrontation with your own mental landscape that is simply not possible when you are perpetually distracted. Research on mindfulness and meditation, both of which rely heavily on silence, consistently shows reductions in cortisol, the primary stress hormone. Studies from Harvard Medical School have found that regular periods of silence lower blood pressure, reduce heart rate, and decrease markers of systemic inflammation. Chronic inflammation is now understood to be a root driver of everything from cardiovascular disease to depression to accelerated aging. When you sit in silence, you are not just resting your ears. You are giving your entire physiology a chance to downregulate, to move from a stress response back toward baseline. There is also compelling research on silence and emotional intelligence. When people regularly practice sitting with their own thoughts in silence, they report greater clarity about their values, their emotions, and their relationships. Therapists have noted for decades that the most transformative moments in a session often come not during speaking, but during silence. When a patient stops explaining and simply sits with what is true, something shifts. Silence creates space for honest perception. And honest perception is the beginning of genuine change. Some of the most celebrated creative and intellectual minds in history have spoken about silence as a professional necessity, not a luxury. Isaac Newton spent 18 months in rural solitude during the Great Plague of London. During that period he developed calculus, formulated the laws of motion, and laid the foundation for modern optics. Beethoven walked alone in the woods every morning in silence before composing. Carl Jung built a stone tower retreat where he spent time in isolation specifically to access a deeper level of thought. These are not coincidences of biography. These are examples of people who understood that the mind produces its best work when given adequate silence to do so. The practical implications of all this research are significant. If your environment is chronically noisy, your hippocampus is likely under chronic stress. Your memory consolidation is being disrupted. Your default mode network is getting insufficient activation, which means your creativity, your emotional processing, and your self-awareness are all being quietly diminished. And perhaps most concerning, your stress response system is running at a low but constant level of activation, which over months and years accumulates into measurable health consequences. The good news is that even small doses of silence produce measurable benefits. 2 hours per day produced dramatic neurological changes in the mouse study. But even 20 minutes of genuine quiet, meaning no podcasts, no music, no scrolling, no talking, has been shown to reduce cortisol levels and activate the default mode network in ways that carry over into improved focus and emotional resilience for hours afterward. You do not need to become a monk. You need to become intentional about protecting small windows of stillness in a world that will fill every available moment with noise if you let it. Silence is not passive. It is not doing nothing. It is a condition under which some of the most important processes in human neurology, psychology, and physiology take place. The cultures and individuals throughout history who have treated silence as sacred were not being mystical. They were being accurate. They understood, without brain imaging or cortisol studies, that the quality of a human life depends in no small part on the quality of the quiet moments within it. So the next question is not whether silence is beneficial. Before you go, if you learned something valuable today, hit that like button right now. Subscribe to Sleep Wave for a brand new video every single day. We will see you in the next one.